I often joke that you've probably actually met undercover officers and never known it.
Oh, for sure.
In your everyday life, just walking through the grocery store or the mall or whatever else. They estimate there are 100,000 undercover officers inside the United States at any given time.
Well, that would include foreign government services, obviously.
Right. So
that almost seems low.
It's
almost.
It's also the
it's
also the unclassified number, right? So I mean, that's the odds of you crossing paths with one of them at some point is scarily high, right? Whether you're standing in line at Target or Walmart, because guess where they shop, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're visiting a national park and they're taking the picture right beside you, or whatever it might be, you're going on a cruise and they're on the cruise ship with their family too. It's just amazing how close it's been. And that's not even counting all the people out there who have stories about grandparents and aunts and uncles who nobody really knows what they did and maybe they did this or that. It's fascinating how we're all just a few steps removed from truly undercover work.
I do know someone in the CIA. They don't know that I'm in this, that I know they're in the CIA, but I know they're in the CIA. And it's like, it made me think, when I figured that out, and I'm 99% sure, when I figured that out, I was like, I wonder how many times, not just CIA, but how many times I have been around someone who was complete undercover with something. And I try to do like math in my head sometimes with that, and then I get tired. But I'm like, it's not two people. It's probably more. Even if it's just a quick, you have a conversation with someone in the coffee store. I'm not talking about people that you're like friends with. Obviously, then the probabilities are a lot lower, but not zero.
Right. And what's crazy is that 1%, you said you're 99% sure, that 1% means that they're winning. That's where plausible deniability comes from. 1%. If there's
0.1%.
99% sure, 99.9% sure that person's an undercover CIA officer, but you're not 100% sure, which means their cover is working. Their cover is holding. That's what cover is supposed to do.
Is that good enough?
It's not ideal, but in many places it's good enough. You know what you can't do with somebody who's 99.9% sure? You can't arrest them. You can't wrap them up, right? That's a term that we use, is wrapping up. If you don't, in the United States, if you don't have a rock solid case, then they're not going to, the SWAT team's not going to wrap you up. The prosecutor's not going to press charges. They're not going to go after you unless they have a rock solid case, 100% case.
But then what about the people who get convicted who didn't do it?
Well, that's a different story. That's people who actually are brought into the court system, and then the court system fails them because they didn't do it, but somehow they were proven to have done it by a panel of peers who were supposed to be assuming innocence until proven guilty.
God damn, you look at a lot of nuance. I love it. I love it. I think like you. I just don't have the life experiences to get as honed in on things that I don't know about, obviously. But I appreciate people who think like you because, as I said at the outset of our conversation, it makes this complex life a reminder that it is in fact complex and things are not perfect. But I could nitpick going into like percentages of the plausible deniability thing there. I understand what your point was, and I think people out there will too. It's just, it's a wild concept for people to have to try to figure that out and then wonder what it means if they do. So like with the person I'm thinking of, my life went on the next day when I figured that out. But then once in a while, when it comes up in my head, I'm like, I wonder if he's killing people. Right? Or like, I wonder if like he's been locked up in a jail cell in Somalia one time or, and stuff like this. And it kind of creates the whole almost like meaning of life question because you then think about it in context and you're like, well, he's just one person. You said there's 100,000 at a given time that we know of or that we think we know of in the United States undercover. Well, they're all just one little piece of the whole thing.
Yeah.
They all have to operate in this world of 7.5 billion people on top of each other to let the chips fall where they eventually do in groups of people. And therefore by groups, I mean countries and power structures and stuff. But when you're the CIA or you're the FSB or, some sort of government organization, the Mossad, you're trying to make sure that where your chips fall are going to end up being at the highest part of the pyramid. So I don't know if we talked about this in the car or on the podcast, but like your example with hiring in corporate structures, they hire 10, they expect 7 to be average or better, 3 to be disasters. Right. It's like, well, how do we get 7.5? Like it's like a game of inches in life, and the stakes are never higher than when you're talking about governments and the people who work in them.
So yeah, to one step back from what you just said, I would say that we don't play in a world where chips fall. We live in a world where we place chips. Right? We place bets, but we bet on ourselves. And that, to me, coming out of CIA, that's been the biggest lesson. There's a lot of people out there who just let chips fall. They gamble all the time, but they never try to rig the game. Intelligence is all about rigging the game. If the chips aren't going to fall where we want them to fall, then we're going to find a way to break the game so that the chips fall where we want them to fall. We don't gamble. There's no value in gambling. Gambling is something that's designed to where the odds are against you. We want to make the odds in our favor, right? And
that's what a good businessman does too.
Right. So even when we talk about hiring and firing, and we can talk about it in detail whenever you want, but you don't want the numbers game is what companies have to play because there's so much regulation that prevents them from rigging the system. Right? So just going back to our conversation about equality and fairness, the reason that equality can't be reached is because not everybody has equal opportunity to education, healthy food, whatever else it might be, life experience.
And that's never going to change.
And that's never going to change.
It's never going to be perfect.
So then what ends up happening is in a government like ours that tries to force equality to happen, it creates regulation that cuts off opportunities from other people who have them. So now ideas like equal opportunity, right, that came up in the 80s. Now we're basically saying, well, predominantly this group of people has more opportunities and predominantly this group has less opportunities. So we're going to say out of 10 opportunities, 7 of them have to go to this group and 3 of them have to go to this other group. We're going to manually take opportunity away from the group that has more opportunity to make it fair.
Right. Redistribution, pretty much. Thank you for watching the video, guys. Please hit that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.